I am Rosario, coming from Tamil Nadu, southern part of the country of India. Well known the city Madras, though today we call it Chennai. I am basically a pastor, Jesuit priest, and also teaching theology and sociology at various institutes and various colleges and seminaries, both in India and outside. The last 100 years, Pentecostal movements have come up all over the world. But if I now refer to our Indian context, one or two points I have to highlight. Number one would be that the Indian Pentecostal movements have certainly exhibited certain dynamism on the part of the members who are participating. And they are now giving lots of challenges to the so-called institutionalized churches, including Catholic Church. I will be very honest enough to say I am not a member of Pentecostal movement, but I have picked up lots of insights, lots of challenges, lots of messages. It is there, I will say one or 2 points. Number one, the Pentecostal movements in India has now even crossed the boundaries of religion. That means that the Pentecostal movements in India are not making an appeal only to Christians, Catholics, but even to Hindus. There's a national survey giving the detail that about 41% of the people who are attending the Pentecostal programs are Catholics, 31% from other denominations of the churches. But 28%, solid number, are people from other religions, in particular from Hinduism. This one thing that invites me to look beyond our Catholic Church and thereby to make our church life, our faith life, much more inclusive rather than exclusive. Number two, as far as the Pentecostal movements in India is concerned, women are coming up. Certain amount of gender justice, even in the faith gatherings and faith celebrations. And now they are giving a message to the institutional church, and especially to Catholic Church, that we need to take women, the poorest, and the people who are being sidelined into a special consideration, and also extend due participation for them in the church life and the church ministries. See, about 10 years ago, the Bishops' Conference, Catholic Bishops' Conference of India, in collaboration with the National Biblical Catechetical Liturgical Center at Bangalore, they conducted a survey. And they are now given about 8 details as a result of the survey. There's no time to now focus on every one of them, but besides the 2 that I have indicated, I have to now refer to 2 others for your inquiry. Number 1, the Pentecostal movements are now giving the message to the Catholic Church. Namely, though we make much about our tradition, but we have to get back to our roots, the original source, and nothing but the Word of God, and much more the Bible, where we need to draw inspirations. If that's a living word, it has a lot to give even to the modernized, globalized world of today. And Catholic Church needs to get back to that roots, the origins, where the very Spirit of God and much more the Word of God, much more the presence of Jesus in terms of the New Testamental covenant is very much present. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is namely the vibrancy, the vitality, and the, what we call it, a new life that's being given to the youths in the churches, including Catholic Church. Somehow, all our institutional churches and very much Catholic Church in India has now come to be dominated by people who are seniors, and nothing very specially done for the juniors, and much more for the youngsters, upcoming generations. As far as India is concerned, about 45% of the Indian population, out of 1.21 billions, they belong to youth age, namely below 35. And they are not given due role to play in the institutional churches. Whereas the Pentecostal movements, some are making a big appeal to them, and they are very much up as Jesus youth and whatnot. This gives me an opportunity to speak about my own personal experience. Right from the beginning, I keep the liturgical form that has been approved by the Catholic Church. I bring in certain charismatic or Pentecostal elements. I give one or two examples and see whether those examples answer your question. Number one, okay, the ordained priests have the priority function to break the word of God and make the word of God quite meaningful, relevant to the people at large. But now, while I give the homily or reflections or sermon, even on a Sunday, I try my best to do it this way, to make it more participatory. How? I begin the reflections, I throw a question to the congregation, ask them to come up with their reflections, and they do come up, and sometimes even surpassing my preparations, surpassing my expectations. The Holy Spirit is very operating in them. And there even the youngsters, others do participate, women come in. Then I synthesize or I summarize, then bring the whole reflection to a conclusion. And that makes a lot of sense to them because they are in it. So it is not one-way process, it's a kind of a participatory. Here, even some of the higher-ups in my dioceses, wherever I have worked, have raised a question. But now I have come to understand, Rome, when it gives the Catholic Church, the official church, when it gives the instructions, there are instructions to this particular effect. I now in particular refer to one instruction given in the 1997, where it says like this, namely only ordained priests, at least after the diaconate ordination, only they have the right to break the word of God. In the same instruction, there is one particular clause given almost like a sub-clause, and that says this way, in the process of breaking the word of God, you can also incorporate reflections, sharings, experiences of the people. I throw spotlight on that one and see that comes into effect, and thereby make the liturgy quite participatory. Because India, as far as the Christianity is concerned, is a minority religion. That means we can be very passive and we can be very silent. We can be submissive. Because Christians make up only 2.7%. Among them, Catholics only 1.4%. But so it's a very, very minority religion. But now, one thing we can keep them as silent persons and as I put it, passive persons. At the same time, going with the word of God, and we can also empower them for their human rights, for their justice, and for their grace and growth. Now the Pentecostal movements have got that particular energizing effect, dynamizing effect. I again, in my parish, I bring those effects, so that even when you celebrate a sacrament, whichever be the sacrament, or when you celebrate liturgy, or give a homily, or give an exhortation, whatever you think, I like to bring in a political dimension, so that listening to the word of God, listening to the reflections based on the Bible, they get enthused to put in their best in the political arena. Because Jesus says like this, give to God that belongs to God. Same thing, give to Caesar that belongs to Caesar. That means we have got double responsibility. And so that has to be also brought in. And it is Pentecostal movements certainly has taught us how to really enthuse people. But only thing, certain times they stop with prayer and spirituality and that sort of external emotional outburst. But that has to be converted, if not transformed, and that has to be channelized in terms of political participation and political proactive contribution for the nation building. I have to really thank you for asking me this question. Gives me an opportunity to express my philosophy of life. I was in my Jesuit formation time, that is solidly about 6 years before my ordination. At the time, I was the midpoint of my Jesuit formation. That means about 5 or 6 are over, years are over. At that particular time, as a student of philosophy, when I went over to get a direct experience with the poorest of the poor in the remote villages, and where the Dalits, the so-called outcast in India, are living. And there I saw them, the whole village goes without footwears. On inquiry, I have learnt that they are not permitted by the high caste communities to wear footwears. This is only one of the measures. Number of measures being imposed upon them historically and structurally, so that the caste discrimination and the caste tradition are being maintained in the society. Now put answer quite pointedly to your inquiry. As I studied their situation, as I applied my mind to their context, in course of time when I thought of my future ministries, then I noticed, and that way I gave the challenge to myself, that I should have certain identification with them. So now walking barefooted is nothing but a mark of solidarity, so that what I teach, what I preach will come from within, so that even my life will have a pinch of the reality, so that my thoughts, my reflections also will have the punch of it. Futuristically, that means looking beyond what would be India in another 20 years, 3 things are going to happen. I am now just spontaneously giving my reflections. See, my reflections are making some sense to you. Number 1, in another 20 years time, 20 years time plus or minus, India will have huge human resources. Already it has got about 17% of world population. In another 20 years time, India will have human resources will come to be 20% of the world population. What does it mean? Every 5th person walking on the earth will be an Indian. It's a huge power. Now that should not be misused, abused, but put into good use. That comes the second one. Certainly the education patterns in India are going up very much. People are becoming really intelligent, cognitive, insightful, educated, informed and formed. Again, that way when they come up with that educational academic qualifications and competence, they will have a lot to give to the nation, and also through the nation of India to the world at large. I expect at that time, India will stand with a certain dignity of its own, and thereby to give certain spiritual and ethical, moral guidance to the world at large in order to come up as a new nation. The third expectation that I have got about India in another 20 years time is, namely, India will at the time will come to be spiritually more vibrant. The last 3 days that I was attending the symposium here on Pentecostal moments, now I have begun to see the phenomenon positively, productively and proactively and purposefully. And if that particular spirit operation is enhanced in the country of India, India is a deep-rooted spiritual nation. Now all the more it will have certain vibrancy in terms of spiritual field, and that will make a lot of positive presence of India in the world at large.